Can you start a podcast with me, please? I need something to do.
Sent it out in front of Malkin to save. They score! Elias Lindholm looks to the heavens.
Here's a chance. Potter right in the goal. He scores. Oh my! What a move by the rookie.
2-on-1. Pasternak moving in with Marchand. Get into it. Score!
The zone. Coyle dances in. Backhand. Score!
Lindholm right wing corner. Pasternak is there. He scores! David Pasternak wins it for Boston.
Welcome in, everyone, to another episode of Bruins Tape to Tape. I'm your host this week, Caroline with a K, and our Boston Bruins have finally clinched a playoff spot for the first time in over a year. They have been redeemed. I don't know what, but they certainly backed their way in. But before I keep going, I want to welcome in a special guest because Maria from Watertown is enjoying Italy right now as we speak. So what's better than to talk about some other Eastern Conference teams than bringing in Anna? And we're going to talk about the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Detroit Red Wings. Hey, Anna.
Hey.
Welcome back. It's been a minute, but one of our favorite guests and friends of the pod, keeping us on our toes and keeping us informed in our Discord, especially when it comes to divisional rival, Detroit Red Wings. Let's talk about what's going on around the rink for the Bruins real quick, and then we'll dive right into learning a little bit more about what the heck is happening in Detroit. And will we see Charlie Coyle's playoff record continue? The Bruins clinched their playoff spot. They're currently fighting for wild card 1 because, again, nothing is easy. They do this to themselves all the time, and playoffs are going to be, I don't know if they're going to be painful or not to watch, but hopefully they can beat New Jersey this week and clinch that first wild card spot. I don't want to see them go to Tampa again for a first round, nor do I want to see them play Carolina at all this season. That was enough. We don't need to see them do that again. But we've got 3 teams fighting for a single playoff spot in the East for the Metro, 3rd place, and 4 teams out west fighting for a spot in the Pacific. Special stick taps to Morgan Geekie this week, obviously, because Maria called him out. This is then the week that he comes back and is able to score again, getting himself his second Hattie in his entire career in Carolina, and then scoring on a beautiful breakaway against Tampa in Boston. What a great game that they totally blew at the end. Typical Boston Bruins hockey, final minute, and they lost it all. They made it without really having to do anything and headed immediately to Columbus, where they played the Blue Jackets for the 3rd and final time. And Anna, you had mentioned before the start of the episode, you didn't get to catch this game. Don't worry, it wasn't anything particularly thrilling, at least for the most part. No surprise, Columbus scored first.
Usually do.
That seems to be something that they were really, really good at. And then playing a little back and forth, Boston tied it up. They led. Then Columbus seemed to fall apart in the end. But very interesting story about their goaltender. Is his name Jet? Greaves. And then what's his name from Latvia?
Elvis Mercer. We like to try to forget that he's on the roster.
Well, so it sounds like is it Graves? Kind of.
Greaves.
Whatever. Graves? This is why I spend all this time editing, because I don't know these names for these other players. He's seemingly run away with the starting spot. I mean, how long has he been playing in the league? He's a young kid, right?
This is his rookie season, but he did have some games before then, and he should have been up at least last year, if not the year before. Mm-hmm. But because Elvis just is on that ridiculously long contract that Jarmo signed him to many years ago. But yeah, I mean, Greece has been a revelation because for a long time we had no idea. Goaltending, we were doomed of goaltending after losing Bobrovsky. We had Korpisalo and Merzlikins. Corby, back when he was in Columbus, he had a thing where one year he'd be great, the next year he'd be absolute utter trash.
Oh no!
It was a cycle. one year he would look like a legit star. You're like, oh my God, he's the future. Then the next year it's like, dude should be in the ECH hell. What is he here for? And then Merzlikins is always just been, he shows up for about 3 to 4 weeks in the year, usually the first 2 or 3 weeks, and then a week or two later in the season. And he's absolutely great. Looks like a Vezina contender. Like, the dude is a brick wall. Nothing gets past him. He's just absolute God. And then the rest of the year, he's utter trash.
I feel for you on that. It's hard to get and find a good, solid goaltender these days. I feel like there's just a lot of folks in the middle, and it's hard to really find that star player. I mean, to your point about Korpisalo, I don't think he's been a bad goalie. I think last season he was pretty solid, pretty consistent and decent. This year he's been phenomenal. So I laugh in my head as you're describing him having one year being awesome and the next year not. And I'm thinking to myself, was this year then his awesome year? Because he did get a lot of criticism last season and even parts of this year, although since coming back from the Olympics, he and Swim have been like, you could have either guy and they're gonna steal the game for you because the offense in front of them is just not showing up to work. But let's talk a little bit about, which one do you want to talk about first? Columbus or Detroit?
I have a lot less to say about Columbus. So start with them.
A super quick review of what's happened between Boston and Columbus, and then we can get to the juicy stuff about divisional rival Detroit Red Wings. My first question, and I've asked you this earlier in the season, Charlie Coyle. This guy, love him. I was so sad when Boston traded him. I kind of knew it was coming. He was having a sort of crappy season last year after really coming into his own, got traded to Colorado, made it into the playoffs there. And then I believe it was in the off season, then he was traded to Columbus.
And believe me, that was a very controversial trade in Columbus circles.
Now, who did they trade him for?
We traded him for a pick and Gavin Brindley.
Okay, well, how did that work out? I don't know.
Gavin Brindley pretty much went straight to the NHL with the Colorado Avalanche. And Columbus fans really liked Gavin because, number one, Gavin played for Michigan.
Obviously,
they play in Columbus, but because Michigan has become the Blue Jackets development factory,
yes,
over the last decade or so, like so many of our best players come from University of Michigan. So Ohio State fans hold their nose and like Michigan players. Furthermore, Brindley was Adam Fantilli's best friend.
No.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so we traded him, and he also has some good upside. He was one that we thought that, I mean, he's probably not ever going to be first line quality, but there were talks that maybe he would play on the first line just because he had good chemistry with Fantilli. Like back in college, those two were electric together.
Yeah.
Even if Brindley probably should not be a first line guy, but it's like he has such good chemistry that he probably could have played in the first line on Columbus just because so that Fantilli is someone he had great chemistry with.
Yeah.
And so trading this guy away really did not make Blue Jackets fans happy. And also because along with Coyle, we got Miles.
Oh, that's right.
Blue Jackets fans are, and still are, very, very divided on Miles Wood.
Really? So share the tea because I'm not familiar with.
It's basically the same. Do you ever think that he's a very useful fourth line grinder? Or you think he's an absolute bum who brings down the entire team around him and should not be on an NHL roster?
And so in your professional opinion, how has he performed this season? Good trade, bad trade?
I think it's a good trade.
Yeah.
I guess here's the thing. The Blue Jackets were left in an impossible spot when Johnny Gaudreau was killed. Because they spent the offseason before he was killed trying to get good now. Because they realized we have Werenski in his prime. Marchenko's entering his prime.
Yep.
Johnny Gaudreau is exiting his prime. And we also had some like, young guys like Kent Johnson, who's been a major disappointment this year. Sean Monahan is exiting, getting at the end of his prime. So it's like, we had to win now. Otherwise, we had to start from square one and just trade everyone. You had to do when Don Waddle was faced with an impossible choice. The team was not in a position to accelerate the rebuild.
Although it seemed like they certainly last year still overperformed,
yes.
just missing the playoffs by 2 points. This year, it's literally coming down to the final game. It's entirely possible they would either just make it in or fall short by 2 points again. So do you think, and with the new coach as well, is Columbus at a point where they are about to make that leap forward, or is this the high watermark for this team?
I don't know, to be honest. And the reason for that is because Don Waddle works in mysterious ways. And that's for both good and bad. Mostly good. I want to make that clear. I think that most of his decisions are good because both my teams have very interesting general managers. And Waddle is the better of the two, definitely at this point. Waddle wins more of his gambles than not. But it's never the gambles you expect. He always just does the weirdest stuff. And you're just like, why would you do that? And then most of the time it works.
Yeah.
You know, like after Mason Marchment. And it's just like, hey, it's worked out. We love him. He's a fan favorite now.
That was a surprise one for me as well. He had a good game last night. I believe he scored a goal at least, or was involved with some goal scoring. This is a guy who left Dallas in free agency, literally last summer, goes to Seattle, and it sounds like it just was not a good personnel fit. Yeah. And he ends up being traded fairly early in
mid-November.
Yeah, it was an early trade. Coaching change, or down to the end of the season. Now, how long has it been since the coaching change? Was it
January.
Before the Olympic break or after?
It was back in January.
Right.
Yeah.
What's your take on how this has been going?
I mean, Bonus has been a definitive upgrade from Epison, even remotely a question. The only question I have is the timing. That if you were going to do a coaching change, it should have been before the new year. Because I feel like that it was becoming pretty obvious that Epison was not working out just before then. Because here's what I kind of like to say about both of my teams. Well, now ex-coach and current coach. Dean Evanson is the Dollar Tree version of Todd McClellan, and McClellan is the Walmart version of John Tortorella.
Yeah.
So it's and so it's just like, for all very similar coaches.
Yeah.
And that for the guy you hire when you need a fire lit under the team's ass. But we're not necessarily tactically the greatest.
Yeah.
Especially Evanson and McClellan are very easy to prepare against.
Yeah.
In fact, that's probably been my biggest criticism. But Evanson is just, he's not that great. He's really good at one thing, and it's fighting a fire under your ass. Nothing else he's all that good at, to be honest. And I think that after about a year and a half, I think that the lighting a fire under asses had run its course with his core.
Yeah.
I think that out of all of those three, he's probably got the shortest shelf life because that's all he's got. Has nothing. So I think it was time to move on. But Rick Bowness, he has shown that this team had a lot more in them. But also that this team still has a lot of work to do, which I think we kind of knew before then. This team really overperformed when they went on that long win streak.
Yeah.
Massively overperformed, and we're kind of getting now it's like the probably massive underperform at this point to balance things out, and it's just at the worst time of the season to do so.
Yeah. Well, my impression with that was every team is going to have a coaching bump, right? It's a well-documented thing. They continued to show that, which then kind of makes you think, all right, this coach clearly is working really well with this team. I mean, Bowness, he's a veteran coach. That was probably, to your point of him getting more out of them, that probably comes from his having way more experience working with players in this degree of coaching as opposed to the others.
I mean, he's been coaching so long that 3 of the Blue Jackets players currently had dads coached by Bowness in the NHL.
So, see, he knows what he's doing. But on the flip side, then, again, to your point of there being 3 guys on that team whose dads were coached, I'm wondering if what you're seeing now with Columbus is just a result of the lack of experience with this time of the year and veterans having gone deep. I mean, yes, they brought in Charlie Coyle for a multitude of reasons. I think he's a great culture guy. He's a phenomenal center. Hearing what you're saying about the team, it makes me wonder if them sort of falling apart a little bit at this time of year is just something that you tend to see in teams that maybe don't have the right balance of deep in the season and playoff veteran experience to get them past that point. Is that the secret sauce that's missing?
I don't think it is. Because
No?
even most of the Blue Jackets, a lot of the Blue Jackets core are seasoned veterans in the playoffs. Like, people forget, Werenski was in the playoffs quite a few times in his career. You know, before, I mean, at least 3-4 times already? Boone Jenner has been on the Blue Jackets since 2011, 2012.
Oh, God,
He was one of the, top center. I mean, he was an important piece of when they swept the Lightning in 2019.
Yep.
A lot Merce Lincolns was, I think, also on that roster. There was, we have players, Monahan has been in the playoffs quite a few times. Garland has been in there a few times, I think. So it's we have a lot of guys. Most of the roster has been in the playoffs at least once, if not several times. So I don't necessarily think it's that. I just think it's a roster with serious issues, and that is a product of being forced to accelerate even when you're not in a position to accelerate. Once again, this team was forced in an impossible situation. I think they miraculously made a decision you have to just keep going with the acceleration at this point. You know, it's starting from scratch. You just can't do that.
No.
So it was an impossible situation, and this is the result.
Yeah.
The team's just not ready for it. And I think next year is going to be the make or break year. You have to, at this point, just hope that in the offseason, because I don't think we're making the playoffs this year. Too much has to go for way. But, it's hockey.
I know.
2019, who fought the Blue Jackets to sweep the Lightning,
Right.
But not only win the series, but not even just win the series, But it's weird things can happen. I don't think it's happening. I'm a realist. It's very unlikely.
You're preparing for the worst and hoping for the best.
Yes. It's literally my motto. Expect the worst, but hope for the best.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I think next year is the make or break year. I think that you have to go all in the offseason, get a few more big name, make a few more needle moving players, not necessarily star players, but guys who make a genuine impact like Marchment or Garland or Coyle, guys who actually make an impact, at least in some aspect of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And if you still can't make the playoffs, then you just got to blow things up at that point.
Yeah.
Because at that point, most of the core is just too old. You're not winning it with that core, and you just got to tear around. Vince Hilley needs to be the only untouchable, but him and Jet Greaves, those two need to be the untouchables, and then you just build around them.
And it sounds a lot like what happened with Boston, that by some miracle, they should have been torn down 3 years ago and somehow extended their shelf life a little bit, and then all of a sudden they didn't, and you had what we had last year, which was then particularly traumatic for a lot of us. I'm hoping that Columbus pulls through, that they get that spot. That's just me, because again, I'm rooting for Charlie Coyle to continue his playoff streak. And I like Columbus. I've always been a little bit of a fan. It's not like they were an easy team to play against, at least for Boston, right? So they played their 3 games. Boston did sweep the series, but not without some degree of challenge. Boston this season has made nearly every goaltender look like a Vezina candidate at some point. They don't make it easy on themselves.
Well, Higgins should help with that.
I didn't realize this until the second game that Boston played against them. I'd heard earlier that day that the stats for the goal differential for Columbus in the first period was 3rd ranked in the league behind Colorado and Carolina. However, their goal differential in the third, pretty horrible. And as I'm watching that game, sure enough, boom, 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 3 goals right away in the first. I'm like, oh my God, Boston's never going to come back from this because of just the season that we'd been having. And then somehow the Bruins came back and forced it into not only overtime, but a shootout.
There's nothing more terrifying for a Blue Jackets fan than having a lead going into the third period. Nothing. Like, at the moment we see that we have any lead at all going in for a period, we know we're losing that game. It's over. Just turn the game off. It's not worth watching. You're not winning. See you next game.
Them losing wasn't for lack of talent on the ice. I mean, certainly you've got a lot of really great players and some good future out there. So let's now talk about divisional rival, the Detroit Red Wings. The Bruins finished the series against Detroit this year with 3 wins and 1 loss. And it wasn't without drama. Certainly, we had a shootout win. We lost 4-5 in one game, which was just crazy. A random 3-0 win, which I feel like probably came out of nowhere, and then a 4-2 win in our last outing before. Actually, what I would say was probably the stretch of wins that got Boston into the position that it currently is in, and actually to make a wild card spot. For Boston, very well timed wins. Sorry. But I think the biggest piece of conversation that even we have had in the Discord, this is 10 playoff years that have been missed?
In our 100th anniversary season, 10 straight years missing the playoffs, historic collapse, which is, by the way, the third historic collapse in 3 years.
It seems like March has been a bad month for this team for at least the last 3 years. For the month of March, and hopefully I counted this all up correctly, you can certainly tell me if I'm wrong. They went 7-13 in the month of March, with 2 of those being overtime losses and 1 shootout loss. They started the season and played up until the break like a winning team, like a team that had control over their season, that they had a good handle on things.
Going into the break, they only had to be 500 for the rest of the season, and they would have had a playoff spot.
Yeah, so what happened? Why does this keep happening? What is the Iser plan? What is he thinking? What is going on? Explain this to me.
Well, unfortunately, the Iser plan is an endless series of pretty much, I don't know what. I stopped trying to understand him last year. Look, I was a longtime defender of the Iser plan. I really was, up until last offseason, when I realized, because last season showed just too many contradictions, too many foundational flaws in the plan.
Yep.
And that's mainly due to what I call the timeline of the rebuild. None of it works. Not a single ounce of it works. He started going all in, decided to go all in several years ago. That he was going to win with Larkin. Well, then why did you trade Bertuzzi and Hronek right before that? You know, just before he signed Larkin, like literally the day before he signed Larkin, he traded Bertuzzi. And then just like a week or two before that, he traded Hronek. It's like, okay, so that doesn't make sense. Okay, so maybe he just wants him to be, the grizzled old veteran for Raymond and Sider. And then he went out and got DeBrincat. But DeBrincat's more on Larkin's timeline.
Right.
So what's going on there? And then we have all these other young prospects who are not quite ready yet or just coming in. We had several years where there were no new prospects. Like 2 years, I think, at least. But how does that work with that? Evanson should have been up before he was allowed up. This should have been his 3rd season.
And there's been coaching changes.
He's fired 2 head coaches. The first one was not his coach. That was Blashill.
Oh, right. Yep.
Blashill needed to have been gone. But the problem is, he clearly had just run his course, which is the unfortunate thing. Like, because in a better world, we would have been able to keep Blashill 1 more season. Unfortunately, this is not a perfect world where rebuilds are extremely messy.
Yeah.
What I would have done was is fire Blashill and tell Lalonde, I don't give a shit what happens this season. This team can be unbelievably awful, and we're not caring about the season. Like, it's a write-off, But instead, they kind of judged him off that season. And also, they overperformed that season, unfortunately. But also, he kind of wore out his welcome fast. But unfortunately, that happened. But like, Blashill needed to go. Too many players were getting worse under his watch. And he was supposed to be a player development coach, but players were really regressing under him at the end. So he had to go, even though ideally he would have been around for 1 more year before getting a new head coach. Lalonde wasn't good at keeping guys accountable. We've heard a lot of players were taking shots at him even before he was fired. There was a lot of poorly veiled shots at him even 2 months before he got fired. And then after he got fired, the players basically did the very polite version of, I am so glad he's gone, screw him. And then McClellan comes in, and like I said earlier, he's a very easy coach to plan against. But it's not like he's void of any tactical prowess. He has surrounded himself with good assistant coaches. Quality assistant coach core. There are problems. There are legitimate problems. But he's good at lighting a fire under their asses. And he has done that. Unfortunately, the roster just kind of sucks. Accelerated to rebuild when he shouldn't have. He accelerated to rebuild in Bedard's draft year. Look, I don't think we would have ever gotten Bedard. I don't think we would have ever sucked hard enough to get him. I don't think we would have sucked hard enough to get Leo Carlson or Vance Hilly. Probably not even Will Smith. But you know who you could have gotten? Who you're one position away from getting? Ryan Leonard.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, we could have used a Ryan Leonard really badly. If you just not accelerated, you could have easily landed Ryan Leonard. He would have fallen to your lap. Maybe you could have gotten Will Smith. You sucked hard enough, you know. You definitely could have gotten Ryan Leonard. Instead, we got Nate Danielson, who at the time I liked. I was his biggest defender, but even then, there was one guy who was better than him, Zach Benson. But we knew he wasn't going to get drafted because he's small. But Zach Benson was the better player at the time, has proven himself to be the better player since then. But Nate Danielson was the best player left, and they did get him.
No good.
The problem is, like, he improved his biggest weakness, which was shooting. He was a god-awful shooter going into the draft. I mean, the kid could not shoot to save his life. He's actually a good shooter now. He is. It's just that all of his other things were just, he was just good at.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't elevated being any more than just good. He should be a very good third-line center. He's probably going to have a very long NHL career. He will be that, like, third-line center who teams will want because he's elite defensively. He's going to be very good defensively. He's going to be the guy you want on your penalty kill. He skates well. He can provide some offense. He's not going to be a consistent producer, but he can provide it.
How long has Yzerman been in his current position? 7 years?
Yeah.
Is he going to still be in that position?
Without a doubt. It's not even a question.
Really?
Yeah, because you see, understand this. Chris Ilitch, there's two big things. Number one, Chris Ilitch only cares about money. That's it. He does not give a crap about the team. And guess what? The Red Wings are a complete financial wagon. And so as long as they're making more money than the year before, Ilitch does not care. Number two, Yzerman is basically an Ilitch family member at this point. He's basically a sibling to Ilitch. The entire organization is just a bunch of friends. There are no outside voices. Everyone in organization are besties, and they have no interest in breaking that up.
I feel that because I have a similar complaint about Neely. You've heard me say, you know how much I find him to be a snake. He was an excellent player, but look, I don't like how he operates as a president of hockey ops. I call him the shadow CEO, the shadow owner, because the elder Jacobs, they're spoon feeding him somewhere down in Florida. His son clearly is of an age, I think, where he probably grew up watching Neely in his prime and is just hook, line, and sinker going to follow Neely to the ends of the earth, no matter what. And to your point, is Boston going to be bringing in all that cash every single year? Hell yeah. Hell yeah, because at the end of the day, when you have a team that is part of a city's identity, you can be as mad as you want to be, like we were last year. Livid, livid, livid. Seeing a team just absolutely tank, and not on purpose, which is painful to watch when it's like that. And then to sit there and in their postmortem, listen to Jacobs say, yeah, we're going to raise prices by 4%. And somebody says in the audience, pushing back and saying, really? 4%? Yeah. And guess what? Continues to be a sellout crowd every single game because it's a drug. And what can I do? I'm not, you know what I mean? Sorry that it's the same for you.
You know how in the NBA, there's the Celtics and the Lakers. They are the two cornerstones of the league.
Right.
They can suck unbelievably hard. Like, they can have historically bad seasons. They're still going to probably sell out every single game. We're going to have more money than they did the year before. There are basically two teams in the Red Wings are basically kind of like that, but for the NHL.
Right.
There's a few teams, us, Buffalo, Montreal, those teams are always going to have, no matter how bad they are, we're going to sell out. And to be fair, in Buffalo's case, a lot of times it will be because fans of other teams come in. Even like well into when they were sucking like 5 years ago, they were still getting in like better ratings than almost any other team when it comes to national broadcasts or even local broadcasts. There's just certain teams where it's just like, we're just going to be money factories for the NHL. So yeah, they have no incentive to get better when the fans are not giving an incentive. Fans can start next year throwing jerseys on the ice and start chanting "Fire Yzerman." And like the entire game can be nothing, even if they win, it can be fans just chanting "Fire Yzerman" and throwing set winners on the ice. But as long as they keep making more money than the year before, Chris Ilitch is going to hear that and go, "Oh, that's a shame." He's counting his fat wads of cash. Like it's not going to matter.
Oh, these guys are the worst. All right, Yzerman's not going anywhere. Fantastic.
They're going to be forced to rebuild soon unless Yzerman finally gets aggressive, because he is not aggressive. That's been his biggest problem. If you're going to do the thing that he did where he traded Hronek and Bertuzzi but decided to win with Larkin, then you got to be aggressive. You can make that work, but you got to be aggressive. This offseason, I view this as the final offseason of this core. This is the offseason that will make or break it. If you have to be aggressive, you have to get several needle movers, because you have to replace Kane. You have to get a actually good bottom six, because that bottom six somehow gets worse every year. I don't understand how. Our defense gets worse every single year because every year they somehow find a way to get a new worse defenseman.
What's your goaltending? Because again,
a complete cluster beep.
Yeah, because I'm like, I can't even is Gibson the guy? I feel like he's not the guy, because didn't he play out in Anaheim?
Yeah, he was
a long time ago.
He played his entire career in Anaheim for over a decade until being traded to Detroit. And he had a redemption year last year. He was very good in Anaheim back in the day. Then when they started rebuilding, he fell off. And then he got good again last year. And he was been good this year. But then, like always, every coach has done for the last 7 years, maybe, where they overplay for starting goaltender. I mean, they played Gibson for 13, 14 straight games, including several back-to-backs.
No. What?
They literally played him for at least 12 to 14 games, including several back-to-backs straight.
I mean, I thought it was insane when Jeremy Swayman got the nod for playing back-to-back. I knew that Sorokin had done it this year, but I thought those two were the only ones.
No, Jack Greaves also has played a few back-to-backs this season.
Blows my mind that they would do that. Again, 25 years ago, happened all the time. But, the way that they... blows my mind that anyone would do that on purpose.
The age of goaltenders doing that, starting goaltenders doing that, I think is coming back. It's been trending that way for a few years now. But I think we are definitely... Especially because goaltending is not... There's really no big improvements in goaltending, and it's also just getting, for some odd reason, seemingly harder to get good goaltenders for some odd reason.
Yes.
I think we are about to see an age of that where if you're the starter, you are basically going to be playing probably 60 plus games and doing a lot of back-to-backs. And the Red Wings are trying to do that. But of course, they want to do a COSA, but tandems are becoming a luxury again. This could just be a weird few-year blip where it's been trending up and then it dies off in a few years again. At least the last few years, I've started noticing it a bit more. And this year was the year it seemed to really start exploding.
I almost wonder if it was more noticeable this year just because of the compressed schedule and the fact that you could pay attention to that happening, because they're playing literally every other day, and then there you go, he just played twice right in a row. So interesting.
They overplay John Gibson. That was the big problem. I mean, they've been doing this for years. They get a guy who plays as a starter. They overplay him in the second half of the season. They make him play they play them basically every freaking game. And then they fall off a cliff production-wise. And we're like, well, that's a Scooby-Doo mystery as to why. Guess we're going to overplay them again. We got to play them the next game. Maybe they'll finally figure it out. And then the next season, then always, without fail, the next season, we get a goaltender in 1 year. We overplay them. Then the next season, they suck at complete garbage, unusable. we trade them, and then they get good again for the new team that we're playing for. It's been a cycle for years, and the Red Wings keep doing it. Everyone understands how the cycle goes, except seemingly our coaching staff and front office. We're the ones who are just scratching their heads like, how does this happen? I don't understand what's happening. What's going on?
What does Detroit need to do this offseason? I mean, obviously, whatever is happening in their development pipeline is something's not working there. But
we have good goaltenders, and that's about it. We have good goaltending prospects, but that's about it.
What do you want to see from the Red Wings in this offseason, either with being fulfilled by trade, like you want to see somebody gone, you want to see somebody be signed, not signed, anything in particular there?
Okay, here's the thing. We could be here all day if I went into specifics, because believe me, when I write my article, which will be titled What Must Be Done, Detroit Red Wings 2026 edition, it's going to be a very, very long article.
Yep.
It's not going to be for the faint of heart to read.
Give us the cliff notes.
But, okay, so there's what should be done.
Yeah.
And then there's what will probably actually be done. Knowing Yzerman, well, I'm expecting he's going to stay the course because he hasn't shown a willingness to be aggressive. Maybe finally this season he bucks the trend, but until he does it, I'm just going to assume he keeps going to the trend because his argument is going to be, because I already know what his arguments are going to be. Well, we got more points than last season. Clearly something's working. That's just going to be his argument. And then also he's going to be, well, what am I supposed to do? The prospects aren't developing as quickly as we want. Those are going to be his two arguments, because those are his arguments every single season. Every single season, in the end of season, he sits there and like, he gets really upset when the press asks him, okay, but why aren't you either trading the prospects? Because we got quality prospects that you never trade or call up for just wasting away in Grand Rapids. But the guy's clearly ready.
Prospects, they have a shelf life. We saw this happen in Boston a couple of seasons ago, and it was happening at the exact same time that the Bruins were operating on borrowed time. And because, I don't know, Sweeney, Neely wanted to keep this core together and kind of see how far they could take it. And that meant that guys down in Providence were not coming up. Or in the disastrous season, they would get called up for like a game. They were not able to play enough games, and it was horrible. And they would be sent down right away. And it just seemed like it was very stagnant between the big club and the AHL team, that there was no movement back and forth. There was nothing happening. And finally, again, I don't love how it went down, but it had to happen where they cleared house in Boston. They made room for openings and basically had a huge, not only dev camp, rookie camp, and regular camp to give guys a legit shot at making the big team and having these guys go as far as they could. So that way, when they had to get sent down, they knew what they were going to get if they needed them to come up. And we've had a few of those players come up and have found homes. I mean, Jonathan Aspro is a fantastic example. This is a guy who played in the AHL for 6 or 7 seasons. And I can't imagine him not being a part of this core going into the playoffs. And in addition, the Providence Bruins, they've been one of the best teams. So finally, it seems like, okay, they're cooking, we're cooking. There's some synergy happening there between the two. So you feel good as a fan that not only is the team up in Boston a little bit fresher faced, there's some very good, very close prospects right there that could make that leap. And it sounds like that's just not happening in Detroit.
You see, in Detroit, they like to call up AHL players, but it's the AHL veterans and not the prospects. Like, we have Dominic Shine on the team right now, who actually has been a good addition. He was the captain of the Griffins. This was a guy who made his NHL debut, 31 or something, just like a season ago. He's been good, but then they just don't play him in the important games when he's been probably the only good bottom 6 player we've had since he got called, and they just don't play him when the season's on the line. It's like, he's the only guy on the bottom 6 who actually plays well. We got this guy named Sebastian Kosa. Don't know if anyone's ever heard of him. Drafted 15th overall. Red Wings traded up to 15th. So this is a guy drafted in the first round, traded up to get, drafted him over Wallstedt, who everyone thought was going to be drafted first, and then you just don't call him up when you clearly don't trust your backup?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on here? I mean, the thing is, Kosa is not living up to the 15th overall status. He's not going to be. Wallstedt, the Wild won that.
Oh my God, I can't believe that Detroit had an opportunity to get him and they didn't.
Everyone thought that the Red Wings were going to draft Wallstedt because the moment they traded up, everyone was like, okay, we're drafting Wallstedt because we needed a goaltender. Then they drafted Kosa. And Wallstedt fell, like 2 more positions or whatever to Minnesota. And somehow, remember, Edmonton was right after Detroit. And they have always needed goaltenders. Everyone was like,
and they said no.
Yeah, and they said no. And everyone was like, what the heck? And so
I could go on forever about what I think is wrong with Edmonton, and I'm not a fan of Edmonton. I don't know specifics, but I could give you a whole dissertation on what is going wrong with that team, just like I could give you a dissertation on what's wrong with the Maple Leafs, and that would be relatively objective in spite of my dislike of the Leafs. I'm like, oh, that's a lot wrong there.
Everyone can. Any fan could at this point.
And his name is Austin Matthews.
Can't say that. Just Toronto fans will be on your ass.
Yeah, right.
Say what I think needs to get done. The realistic option of what should be done, if Yzerman finally decides to actually do something, is be mind-numbingly aggressive. You have to add a bunch of needle-moving players. You have to trade prospects. It's time, clear out Grand Rapids, let them suck for a bit. You need to trade guys to win now if you're going to win with this core. If not, then what you need to do is start selling off. I mean, there's 2 paths you can take. You either aggressively sell off every prospect to win now, but guess what? You're going to be contending for like 2 to 3 seasons with this core. That's not ideal, but if I were the GM, if they were to fire Yzerman and hire me as GM, everyone has a price except for Maurice Sider. Maurice Sider is the only untouchable. Now, Raymond, I do not want to sell. I don't want to sell Raymond. But he does have a price, and you have to basically sell your barn for him. DeBrincat, whatever, reasonable price, gone.
Right.
John Price, gone. Simon Evanson, I don't want to get rid of him. He's another one you're gonna have to overpay for because he is good. But if someone were to overpay for him, I'd sell him.
Yeah.
You know, if someone's willing to overpay for him, you can't sell him.
No.
Especially because he's very clearly being groomed to be captain. Make him the centerpiece of the next roster. I also would not sell Marco Kasper this year because I want to see what his ceiling is. Because he showed flashes in his rookie season of potentially being a 1 seed. I don't think he's going to be a superstar by any means, but I think he could be another Larkin, another guy who gets you like 80 to 85 points a season. Not an ideal 1 seed, but when you're a team that has had no luck getting Larkin,
we know all about that.
You just got to do what you can and just hope that you get lucky as with some like 3rd round pick or whatever.
I'll be curious to see what is said in that postseason presser. And then what happens in the postseason when it comes to trades and free agencies. But worst case scenario, this is my last question for you. Looking at the playoffs, it's going to start at the end of this week. If the Blue Jackets don't make it, who are you going to be following with great interest? Who are you going to be rooting for? They don't have to be the same team.
Yeah. The team I'll be following with great interest. I think this may be a shocking one to people, and I am not rooting for it. I want to make this clear. I am not rooting for this team. I hate this team with every fiber of my being, but I am watching them with great interest.
Who is
and that is Pittsburgh.
Oh.
Because obviously, we know this is the last year of the Big Three. They got rejuvenated. They got some nice young players, and a lot of them look like they've turned back the clock. This is a core that we know can do it in the playoffs. And so I just wonder, do they have just enough magic left in them to at least make a deep playoff run, if not the Cups? I don't think they will. I want to make that clear. For not my prediction for who wins the Cup or even makes the final round of the East. But if any team surprises, I think it's going to be Pittsburgh.
Interesting.
Now, I hate that team. So I don't want them to.
Okay.
The team I'll be rooting for is the team that everyone else and their mother is rooting for, and that is Buffalo.
I was going to say it has to be Buffalo, right?
Because Detroit fans and Buffalo fans, we got a comradeship. We got camaraderie. We're both Lake Erie teams.
Yeah.
Have gone through a lot of suffering in various sports. And Detroit fans are very good friends. We have always rooted for each other in basically every sport. We're always even if Buffalo wasn't like the lovable losers, but that helps. But choose a team that's not a camaraderie.
Yeah.
I am going to say Utah.
Okay. I feel like they give a similar vibe to Buffalo, former Arizona, right?
Mm-hmm.
Same kind of someone in the front office, killing the team. Here they are doing it, right? It's the same thing like with Buffalo, right? Their GM was killing this team. Everyone was like, why the heck is this guy still there? They get rid of him. They bring in this tough guy and boom. You've got life. So I buy that. I think that's,
And also, for just underrated as a young core, as a team, they got an exciting young core. If you actually watch, by name, if we're not excited, people aren't sitting there I got to watch Clayton Keller and Logan Cooley, but it's for fun to watch. For actually, when you actually watch a game, I'm locked in when I'm watching the Mammoth play. So they are an interesting team to actually watch. But we just don't have that exciting name like a Connor McDavid or a Matthew Schaefer. It's fun as hell to watch. I have watched so many Islanders games just to watch him play.
Yeah. I like that choice. That's a good choice for the West.
But looking for a fun team that people just don't pay enough attention to.
A little underdog. I like that. I'm going to get on your bandwagon for my West Coast team because I'm thinking of, okay, who's out there? Colorado. I don't have any beef with them, but whatever. They got enough supporters. Dallas, Minnesota.
Chokers.
Screw the Golden Knights, never in any, no.
But most of those Pacific teams should not be in the playoffs.
Most of them should not be NHL teams. Let's be honest.
I'm sorry, but this playoff format is a disgrace. This year, it's been more of a disgrace than usual. So almost solely because of the Pacific. It's never going to change because Bettman seems married to it. But hey, you know what? We never thought NASCAR would actually get rid of the playoffs. So maybe Bettman will finally see the light just like NASCAR did.
Yeah.
But this year, if this year wasn't the breaking point for people who were defending that playoff format, I don't know what will.
My biggest criticism was the fact that when you're looking at the East versus the West, and this was a couple weeks ago, but I said Boston is the 5th best team in the league and was at the time barely holding on to a wild card spot. Barely. But if you did it the way that it used to be 20 some odd years ago, they would have been easily in the playoffs. And it just makes you wonder if when it comes to the Stanley Cup final, how easily the Western team makes it to that series compared to the East. Because if you got to go through the Pacific, come on, the Pacific, how hard could that possibly be for a team like Colorado or Minnesota or Dallas, for crying out loud?
It's going to be Colorado. Let's be real. Colorado's making it out of the West.
I don't know.
I'm just saying right now.
The bad juju with those jerseys, they were wearing them. They got the President's Trophy while wearing them. Then their coach gets hit in the head with a puck. They kept wearing the bad juju jerseys.
Minnesota has no center depth.
Well, that's true. Minnesota's not
Dallas are professional chokers in the playoffs. Until they stop choking in the playoffs, I will never choose them to even make the final, if not at least not win it.
They're always going to lose in the conference final for sure.
For Carolina of the West.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah.
And so it's until they do it, I'm never choosing them. It's going to be Colorado. That's the only team, unless we have a miracle team.
I think the East Coast teams are going to be dead. I guarantee you, East Coast is probably going to have way more Game 7s. They're going to have played more hockey by the time they get to the final than any West Coast team.
But there is one thing can work to the entire team's advantage.
What's that?
Is that if the other team has been sitting on their ass for too long, resting too long, we saw this several years ago, was it? Yeah. I think it was the Vegas Panthers Stanley Cup, where the Panthers made the cup final a week before the Golden Knights, and then all of her progress was just dead. Bobrovsky had returned to human again. My prediction is Tampa Bay comes out of the East. I'm just saying that now.
Probably.
I think we're getting a Colorado Lightning rematch from 4 years
Oh,
ago.
God. Yeah. 22, right?
Yeah, I think we're getting that. Our only hope, our only savior from that potentially is if Carolina decides to not choke this year in the conference final. Good
Well,
luck
I'm
on
not
that.
making that bet.
Yeah, I ain't taking that bet. So you'll know if we're going to be in the conference final again. I would not count on the Western team being able to easily win the cup, even if they have an easy path for that one
True.
reason.
True.
Because we've seen this happen
We have.
just a few years ago.
So, Anna, tell our listeners again where they can find you on all of your places.
Yeah, so the main thing that I'm here for is Prism Hockey, which you can find on Patreon and Substack. Substack is the main platform, but I do have Patreon for those who don't want to support Substack, especially financially. And then I am on Twitter as a Despicable Anna. That's just my username. Thank you, Montreal fans, for giving me that name. No, literally, Boston fans will love this, but it's literally a diss to Montreal fans because they called me despicable. And so, I literally became known as a despicable to them. So I just changed my name to Despicable Anna as a diss to Montreal fans. So
Amazing.
On Instagram, and I also started streaming on Twitch and Kick lately. Usually about every other Monday, I do hockey news. So
Excellent.
And then other nights I do writing streams or gaming. Check me out there. I mean, I'm literally just my name, Anna Hudak, with an underscore between them on both platforms.
Well, thank you again so much for coming and chatting with us about our favorite rivalries and other teams that the Bruins play on the regular. We like to keep an eye on what's happening across the division and in the conference. So it's always fun to talk hockey with you, Anna. Thank you again so much for coming on.
You're welcome. I'm always glad to be here. You guys got a great thing going. You got a great community. I don't listen to too many podcasts anymore because I just don't have time.
Fair.
When I do, I try to listen to yours. So
well,
you are my main go-to hockey podcast when I do have time. There's a reason you guys are promoted on my Substack and nobody else so far.
It's mutual. Well, and then speaking of that, so make sure you like and subscribe for more content and be sure to leave a rating and review to help other Bruins fans find us. And you can support the podcast by joining our Patreon or following us on our socials at Tape to Tape MK and on Substack at tape2tapemk.substack.com. Any final thoughts, special guest?
Hopefully the Blue Jackets figure it out next season and hopefully the Red Wings tear things down.
There you go. Well, and as always, go Bees!